I actually don't think this video is about debunking a Disney phrase. That's the bait. The real move here is more aggressive than that. Neil deGrasse Tyson is arguing that a lot of the way we casually talk about nature is emotionally satisfying and physically wrong. Circle of life sounds holistic, balanced, almost moral. His point is that once you look at energy instead of vibes, the circle stops being a circle. It becomes a one-way drain with a star at the top of the accounting sheet. And on substance, the video is impressively disciplined about that claim. It starts with the cannibalism gag, which sounds like a StarTalk detour until you realize it's a trapdoor into thermodynamics. If humans ate only humans, the system would collapse because every transfer burns energy. That's the key premise of the whole piece. Food chains are not circular engines of equal exchange. They are lossy conversions. Every body is a furnace with overhead. That opening is smart because it doesn't just say energy is lost. It forces you to picture the absurd endpoint. A closed human-only feeding loop would starve itself. That's a much better teaching choice than starting with a textbook diagram of trophic levels, because it makes the law of diminishing available energy feel biological instead of abstract. In other words, the video earns its simplification. It doesn't just drop a science term and move on. The strongest section is when Tyson pivots from cannibalism to basal metabolic rate, and then to the larger point that living things are constantly spending energy just to remain alive. That matters because it rescues the video from a common pop science cheat, where energy transfer gets described as if organisms are just passive containers handing calories to the next animal in line. No, the body is using most of it before it ever becomes lunch. Heat, maintenance, movement, survival itself. That's why this circle framing is not just a little sloppy. It's conceptually misleading. This is where the video gets better than a lot of prestige explainer content. Tyson doesn't merely say the phrase is technically imperfect. He identifies exactly what part of reality the phrase confuses: matter versus energy. Matter cycles. Atoms can be reused, recombined, eaten, excreted, buried, resurrected as geology, whatever. Energy does not politely return in the same form. It disperses. It degrades. It needs replenishment. That distinction is the backbone of the entire argument, and the video actually respects the audience enough to make it explicit. And that's why I think the title undersells what the video is doing. It isn't actually a circle of life. Sounds like a cute semantic correction. It's not. It's a challenge to a whole kind of nature language that smuggles an equilibrium where there is really throughput. We like circles because circles feel ethical. They imply nothing is wasted, everything belongs. The lion and the antelope are participating in some elegant exchange program. Physics is less sentimental. Physics says the antelope is a transaction with a leak. Now, the video earns extra credit for not pretending all life neatly sits under a grass-sun human cartoon. When it detours into the ocean and brings up systems that don't obviously look plant-centered, it's doing something important. It anticipates the pushback. If you're going to claim we're all solar-powered, you have to deal with the places where the path from sunlight to dinner isn't visually obvious. That moment matters because it shows the argument trying to survive contact with edge cases rather than hiding from them. But this is also where I'd push back a little. The video's final flourish, that we are all solar-powered, is elegant and mostly right in the context of surface ecology, but it's still a flourish. It smooths over the weirdness that makes life fascinating. Deep-sea chemosynthetic ecosystems, local exceptions, and the fact that ultimately from the sun is a true statement that can become too totalizing if you wield it like a philosophical mic drop. Not a fatal problem. Just a reminder that a beautiful explanation can still hide a simplifying instinct. The Rose Center Tank story is the one place where the video risks feeling like it's wandering, but even that detour reveals something useful about Tyson as an explainer. He doesn't treat science as a stack of correct facts. He treats it as a way of seeing systems, and the anecdote is basically there to show how people build miniature worlds while forgetting the energy budget that keeps those worlds alive. It's a very Tyson move, cosmic principle, aquarium argument, back to first principles. Slightly self-indulgent, yes. Also effective. Also, small point in the video's favor. It understands that thermodynamics is easier to swallow when someone is willing to sound mildly deranged for 30 seconds. Cannibalism, aquarium politics, economic systems, then suddenly the sun. It has the structure of a man emptying his pockets onto a table and somehow producing a coherent lecture. That should be a mess. Here it mostly isn't, because every tangent is still tied to the same question. Where does the usable energy actually come from, and what gets lost on the way? The economic systems comparison later on is another subtle strength. It risks sounding glib, but it helps because the video isn't really about lions and zebras. It's about accounting. Inputs, outputs, inefficiencies, dependency on upstream supply. Once you hear it that way, the whole argument sharpens. The circle of life cliché flatters us into imagining permanence. Tyson's version is harsher and more truthful. Life is a chain of subsidies powered by a distant nuclear reactor, with every organism paying an energy tax just to exist. What I admire most is the intellectual honesty of the ending. "We are solar-powered" could have been delivered as a TED Talk bumper sticker and left there. Instead, by the time the video reaches that line, it has already done the work to define what that means and what it doesn't. It has shown the losses, the dependency, the hierarchy of conversion, the reason a closed-loop fantasy breaks down. So the conclusion feels earned. Not complete, but earned. That's a much rarer compliment than it sounds. So yes, I'm very high on this one. Not because it's flawless, and not because Tyson says something technically clever on a microphone. I like it because it takes a phrase everyone already agrees with, opens it up, and finds the hidden bad assumption inside it. That's the kind of critique I trust. Not louder, just more precise. If you want more reviews that go after the comfortable reading before it hardens into common sense, stick around. Those are the fun ones.